Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to call this meeting to order. And before we begin, I'd like to pay respect to the First Nations, past and present, and acknowledge the important role that all First Nations people continue to play within our community. May I have approval of the agenda as circulated? There are no parts to the or any part of an addendum. All in favor of approving the agenda? Thank you. So we have a relatively short meeting. We do not have Councillor Moffat with us today. He sent his regrets. And we will have some people who are in the waiting room now who will join us for the public consult, the Shore Road Allowance and the Crime Stoppers presentation. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? I see none, so we proceed with a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adopt the minutes of the regular and closed session meetings of Council held April 19th, 2022 as circulated. Could I have a motion from Councillor Coles?
I will so move.
And seconded by Councillor Osborne.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. And I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adjourn the regular meeting to hold a public meeting for the following matters. Zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2021-0016-C for Tarco and consent application numbers B 2021-0029-C and B 2021-0030-C for Tarco. Could I have a motion from Councillor Fellner?
So move, Mayor.
Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Collins.
I'll second the motion, Mayor.
All in favor of moving into the public meeting? Thank you. Council will now hold public meetings for proposed consent and zoning bylaw amendment applications. In accordance with the Planning Act, Council will consider all matters placed before it prior to granting a consent or passing a zoning bylaw. If a person or public body who files an appeal of a decision of the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin in respect of a proposed consent does not make written submissions to the Council before it provides or refuses to provide a provisional consent, the Ontario Land Tribunal may dismiss the appeal. Anyone wishing to receive notice of the passing of a zoning bylaw amendment not owning land within 120 meters of the area to which it applies and who has not submitted such a request in writing should provide their full name and address to the clerk. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of Council to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal, unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to do so. The purpose and effect of consent application numbers B 2021-0029-C and B 2021-0030-C for Tarco is to create two new rural residential lots fronting onto Star Lake Road. The subject lands are located at 261 Star Lake Road. The proposed retained lot is to have a lot area of 30.5 hectares and 420 meters of lot frontage onto Star Lake Road. The proposed severed lot 1 and severed lot 2 are both to have a lot area of 1.2 hectares and 90 meters of lot frontage onto Star Lake Road. The purpose and effect of the associated zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2021-0016-C for Tarco is to rezone the proposed severed lots 1 and 2 from rural RU zone to rural residential RR zone to recognize the future rural residential use of the proposed lots. I now ask the clerk to state the method by which notice of the meeting was provided and the dates on which that notice was provided.
Notice of the public meeting was provided by posting the property and by regular mail on April 12th, 2022. Notice was therefore considered to be provided in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act.
Has the township received any correspondence with respect to these applications?
No correspondence has been received.
Has anyone registered to speak to these applications?
No one is registered to speak to these applications.
Does council have any questions? Councillor Collins, you have your hand up?
Yes, I do, Mayor. Thank you. And to my fellow councilors, I walked these two parcels of land on Saturday, and I could see absolutely no issues to move this zoning bylaw forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And this is definitely in keeping with our strategic goal of providing more housing options for everyone in the township.
Yes, that's correct, Mayor.
Thank you. Council will now close the public meeting and reconvene the regular meeting. So I have a motion that the public meeting held for the following matters is hereby closed and the regular meeting is hereby reconvened. Zoning bylaw amendment application number R 2021-0016-C for Tarco and consent applications number B 2021-0029-C and B 2021-0030-C for Tarco. Could I have a motion from Councillor Finson?
I so move.
And seconded by Councillor Coles.
I second that.
All in favor? Thank you. And I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby grant provisional approval to consent applications number B 2021-0029-C and B 2021-0030-C for Tarco, subject to the conditions set out in the decisions. Could I have a motion from Councillor Osborne
So move.
and seconded by Councillor Fellner?
Second that.
All in favor? Thank you. And this is the consent that goes with that bylaw number 2022-053, being a bylaw to amend Township of Seguin zoning bylaw number 2006-125, property roll number 4903-040-001-08400, rezoning application number R 2021-0016-C for 261 Star Lake Road, owned by Tarco, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins
I so move, Mayor.
and seconded by Councillor Finson?
I second that.
All in favor? Thank you. Okay. Notice if, okay. Okay. So we have item number 6, which is the Shore Road allowance. And I'm going to ask, Mr. Smith is in. I'm going to ask Lauren to speak to it, and the property owner of the land letting the Shore Road allowance is here to reply to questions. So Lauren, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the owner at 346 Otter Lake Road, Mr. Smith, who, as your mayor mentioned, is in attendance, has recently applied to purchase the Shore Road allowance abutting their property on Otter Lake. This report tonight is an information report only and not a public meeting, as it's still in the very beginning stages of the process. So to summarize the report, Staff received a concern from the neighboring property owner to the east who owns a water access property. They have stated that they have historically used and continue to use a foot and ATV path along the subject shore road allowance that leads from the public boat launch to their cottage. So staff believe that there are risks involved with this current access situation, including parking at the public boat launch, an ATV path along the water, and it may have potential negative consequences with respect to access in the future. The neighbors have requested a 12-foot wide deeded right-of-way over the shoreline path prior to the sale of the shore road allowance. The applicant, Mr. Smith, advised that he would instead grant his neighbors a right-of-way over the back of his properties, which would allow for the neighbors to have permanent vehicle access and as well beyond the first 20 meters of the shoreline. It's my understanding that the neighbors did not wish to proceed with this route due to costs involved. So as per the Township shore road allowance policies, when abutting neighbors are not in agreement with the privatization of the shore road allowance, staff bring these concerns forward to council prior to continuing with the file. So with all that said, staff are recommending a deferral of the application to allow the neighbors time to come to an agreement prior to proceeding to the public meeting. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and as stated, Mr. Smith is also in attendance.
Does council have any questions?
Oh,
Councillor Coles.
I don't really have any questions. I just think I'm sympathetic to Mr. Smith's point of view that I don't think I would want vehicular traffic going across the front of my property once I owned it. It just would present itself as a very awkward situation. And I'm looking at the pictures. I'm very familiar with this property, by the way, as well. And I think it would be particularly problematic going down the road. It may be okay for the current owners, but as ownerships change, things change. And I see it as less than desirable.
Thank you, Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mayor. So Lauren, I see an email from Mr. Smith stating that as long as he's around, he doesn't have an objection. But I suppose the issue is if the property is sold and the shore road allowance is purchased, a new owner could deny the access. Is that the idea? We want to look ahead here. So there is really no objection today, as I understand it, to providing easement.
Through you, your worship, to Councillor Osborne. So yes, currently Mr. Smith is okay with them using the footpath, I believe, and you can certainly direct this to him, but I believe he has issue with the ATV along the path. And yes, you're certainly correct that when or if a new owner comes along, then that access or that agreement that Mr. Smith has with his neighbors could change. The second thing is that it's not deeded. Mr. Smith has proposed a deeded right-of-way to the back of his property over an existing driveway. So we're hoping that the neighbors can come to some sort of solution prior to the public meeting.
Okay, thank you. And your recommendation from planning is that we defer this issue and let the neighbors go forward on it?
Correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Fellner.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So Lauren, so just to clarify this, the neighbor has a water access lot, correct? But they're not really accessing their property by water. They're accessing it from a trail, and it kind of looks to me from one of the pictures of it, it's been an improved trail. It's not really a footpath. It looks like there's some gravel and things on it. So, I mean, really, I mean, you can't, do you have a water access? Do they want a water access lot, or They want a lot with some access on it. I'm totally sympathetic to Mr. Smith in this case. So I think your approach is correct. I think that they need to sit down and figure things out. But I mean, to me, the question is, do you want a water access lot, or do you want a lot with deeded right of way? To me, it's not much of a decision, I wouldn't think, but I applaud Mr. Smith for taking the initiative to offer it. So anyhow, I'm in agreement with the deferral.
Thank you very much. Mr. Smith, do you have anything you wish to add in brief?
Yes, I just wanted to make it clear that there was an existing roadway to the neighbors. The cost that they would incur would be the entrance from the roadway to the back of their lot. It's a well-established roadway that I paid for back in 1998, I think, when Lyle Doyle owned this property, 346 Otter Lake Road. And my worry about the deferred, to me, it will just allow the neighbor to continue to do nothing, or continue to use the motorized equipment, or continue to prevent me from obtaining a permit. So if it is deferred, is there a date?
Just to address Mr. Smith's concerns. So if this is the direction that council is heading in to defer the application, staff this week will be in touch with both the applicant and the neighbor. We will put a time frame on it. I know Mr. Smith has a surveyor coming out the end of this month. So we'll do everything possible to work with the neighbors in a timely manner and get hopefully a solution.
Lauren, can I say something?
Go ahead.
As a matter of fact, I do have a $2,000 retention to Tulloch surveyors. And like Lauren said, they are slated to come in May 30 to proceed with the survey. So that is a concern also.
Thank you very much. Councillor Osborne, last comment on this issue?
Second comment, yes.
Second, yeah.
Just for clarification, Lauren, when they say water access, typically that means you access your property from the water. Is this not the reverse where they have access to the water from a mainland property, right?
Through your worship to Councillor Osborne, you are correct. So that it is a water access property. However, they have historically been using the path along Mr. Smith's shoreborough allowance.
So I assume they have land access to the back of their property somewhere from a road, the Copelands?
Sorry, to the back of their property,
Well,
Mr.
How would they access their property otherwise? Is there a road access to that property? It's landlocked.
Currently no access for vehicle use. They've just been using that path along the shoreborough allowance. Mr. Smith, as stated, does have an existing driveway to his other neighboring property, which he is proposing that they can have a driveway entrance off of that existing road, and that would allow them to have vehicle access.
And that, I guess, from Mr. Smith's point of view, Tulloch is going to be surveying for that as well?
I believe that's the case. And a couple things I want to point out. The neighbors have water access and are taxed as water access property. They have been given footpath access through Mr. Smith's property as a good neighbor. He's not comfortable with the ATV and vehicular traffic, and he is offering them to become road access with a deeded access to the rear of their property off of an existing driveway. So given the concerns about timing, I would like to suggest that council give direction to staff to Lauren and her staff that you work with the neighbors and come back at the next council meeting, which is 2 weeks from today. Is that acceptable?
I agree.
Lauren, do you think you can tackle it on that timeline?
Yes, we'll make it work, Your Worship.
Mr. Smith, does that work with you?
Yes, it does. I just wanted to make clear that the access is also a deeded road access to my other property. So that portion is deeded right across the back of the neighboring property. So my agreement was that they could use it and use it immediately if they wish, and deed it at their convenience in the future.
Thank
And
you.
also I told the neighbor that I was comfortable with letting them still walk across the front. But I never really addressed the ATV because I didn't know what my legal rights were.
Thank you. And those of us that have sold property do recognize that having a deeded anything is to your advantage when you sell land. Councillor Fellner, can we have the last comment on this from you?
It's not a comment, Mayor. It's a question for Mr. Smith. Just so I have this clear in my own mind, I apologize for not asking this sooner. So I'm looking at figures 2, site sketch of the subject lands, right? Where it says, so you're showing the private road right away that goes across the back of, I would assume, is maybe where your cottage is, that lot, and then it turns to the right and heads down the other lot line. Is the road already built on that private right of way?
That's correct. The road has been there since 1998.
That's the road you were referring to that was built. So it's built down both sections there. So that road is very close to the neighbor's cottage, just to the rear of it, right? It's not very far at all.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Lauren, I'm sorry. Lauren and I walked it on Friday at the rear of the neighbor lot, and she had a good look at it. And it might be from my property line to a driveway that she has to do. It could be maybe 50 feet of driveway that she would have to put in.
Okay, yeah, no, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. And I think if you look at figure 3, the aerial photo, the kind of light white line that arches over the top is the road that exists.
Yeah, okay, I missed that. I'm sorry.
So I think you're hearing that council will accept the staff recommendation to defer it at this point, but we'd like you to work with the 2 neighbors and stress the importance of deeded access, and perhaps tell them how council felt and come back at the next meeting, which is 2 weeks from today.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Smith, for attending.
Thank you.
Okay. So we have in our council package a presentation from Crime Stoppers, but we also welcome Peter Shadget and Jean Lemieux from Crime Stoppers to educate us a little bit on their program. Gentlemen, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I'll just make a couple of comments before I turn it over to Jean. Thank you for taking the time to allow us to make a presentation today. I'm a relatively new resident of Seguin. I moved here 7 years ago because my wife is originally from here. I'm a retired former executive with the Ontario Provincial Police. When I retired, I was in charge of organized crime enforcement, and prior to that, I was in charge of major crime. All of my career, Crime Stoppers has been integral in the solving of most major crimes that I had the occasion to investigate. And there's a lot more to Crime Stoppers than that. And that's why Jean is here. He is the coordinator for the Near North Crime Stoppers based out of North Bay. And I will turn it over to him. And then when he is finished, we'll open the floor to any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And again, my behalf, I want to thank the council for having us do a quick presentation. I do have a PowerPoint, and hopefully it will be on the shared screen here. Hopefully you'll be able to see that. It's basically what we want to do is just to explain what Crime Stoppers is. It's a program. We are in your community, and you as the elected official representing the citizen, I think it's important that for you to understand and know what Crime Stoppers is and what it is not. Can everybody see the screen with the PowerPoint?
Yes, we can see it fine.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
That's great. So first of all, maybe the best way to start would be with our mission statement, and it basically explain what Crime Stoppers is. It's a partnership between the police, the public, and the media, and each plays an integral part. As Peter mentioned, the police, a lot of crimes are solved because of tips provided to Crime Stoppers. So basically, how it works is we want the public to provide the information that they have on criminal activities. We also rely on the media when we have a media campaign, media release, highlighting a certain type of crime in a certain area for the media to publicize it. And of course, the public brings the information and we forward it to the police, and the police will investigate and let us know what happened. So we need the three component in this. A brief history of Crime Stoppers. It started in 1976 in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and they had, the story goes that they had the armed robbery that turned bad, and eventually the attendant, the young attendant, was killed during the robbery, and the police. That's before we had cameras everywhere, so there was no such thing as video recording and people with cell phones in those days. And it was very frustrating because the police officer that was investigating realized that people know what happened, but nobody comes forward for whatever reason. So he appealed to the media, and they did the reenactment of the crime with the information that they had at the time. And they set up an anonymous tip line, and they offered a small reward. And within 17 hours, that crime was solved. People came forward with information. So that's where Crime Stoppers, the idea was born in 1976. And it's based on a principle that for every crime that is committed, someone other than the actual person, that the offender that committed a crime, they have information, and the information, for whatever reason, they don't want to pass it on to the police. So that's what Crime Stoppers offer, is a program that is totally anonymous for the people that have information on criminal activities, to provide that information to Crime Stoppers, and in turn, we will send it over to the police. So basically, if you look at the Crime Stoppers program, we are like the middleman in this here. So how it works, and again, I have to say right off the bat that we cannot take information from victims, because obviously victims of crimes have to be identified. They have to identify themselves, and they'll have to be interviewed by the police. So it is not the program, it's not for the victims, but it is for people that have information on any type of criminal activity. The person will call in our tip line, the 1-800-222-8477 number, which is the same number across Canada, by the way. So no matter where you are in Canada, if you dial that 1-800-222-TIPS number, it will ring at the closest Crime Stoppers office. And we have offices, there's 88 programs across Canada. So every area of the country is covered by a Crime Stoppers program. And now with the new technology, we are able to take a tip anonymously online. So if you go to nearnorthcrimestoppers.com, or if you just Google Crime Stoppers, you'll get the first Crime Stoppers program right there. And we all have an icon on our website, submit a tip. Then the form will drop and so on. So the person will call or provide the information to what we call the web tip. They do not identify themselves. We don't want to know that. If they are calling, we do not have call display on our phones. We don't have tracing capabilities. And people will say, well, if you're a little bit tech savvy, if the information is provided on the internet, you can find out from which computer it came from. The system is devised so that once the person hits the send a tip, it goes to two different servers. where it's encoded before it reached, for example, my office. So if I'm going to do a bit of research and find out where that tip came from, the only address that I would get is the server that is located either in Ottawa or in Texas. So it's almost impossible to find out where the information comes from. So when the person is submit the tip, they're given a password and a code number, their tip information, and we ask them to check with us periodically. Normally for after the first tip, we ask them to call back or check online after 30 days. We take that information, and part of my job as a police coordinator is to sanitize the information to ensure that there is nothing written or when it's on the phone that can potentially identify who that tipster is. So someone has information, they call Crime Stoppers, and they're probably nervous for whatever reason. They don't want to contact directly the police. They fear that of reprisal. They fear that they may have to testify in court. So we provide that avenue for them to provide the information. So I take that information and I send it to the appropriate agency for investigation. So we deal with all the OPP detachments in our area, the North Bay Police Service. We deal with the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, the conservation officers. So we receive a lot of information. Those investigators will investigate or look at the tip and see if it's valuable to them, do their investigation, and we ask them that they reply back, let us know if the information was successful or not. And based on that, we will be able to communicate, or the tipster will communicate with us, and we'll let them know that it was successful, and we'll offer a reward. Now the reward, these are the ways to contact Crime Stoppers. So call in at the 1-800 tip line here, or if you go on our website, you can submit online, or through a mobile telephone, you can also submit the tip online. Now, should the information be valuable to the police, lead to the conclusion of a case, seizures of drugs, or recovery of stolen property, arrest of people or whatnot, the board, Crime Stoppers board, will offer a reward. Now the rewards, as I was saying, go from $50 to $2,000. That's a maximum we would pay. And it's been my experience, I've been doing this Crime Stoppers coordinating role for 20 years. And I would venture to say close to 80% of the people that provide valuable information, they don't want the reward. They're just doing it because they know they have the information. They don't want to communicate it with the police directly, so they use Crime Stoppers. So that's what the program is about. Does it work? Here are some of our statistics. Crime Stoppers, Near North Crime Stoppers, which covers the district of Parry Sound and the district of Nipissing, so your area is covered in that, was incorporated in 1988. So since 1988, these are the stats at the end of March. So we have received 21,100 tips. Has led to 1,771 arrests. The board has approved $255,000 of reward, $4.4 million of property and cash has been recovered by the police as a result of information provided to Crime Stoppers. And the last number is astonishing, $57.5 million worth of drugs has been taken off our streets because of information provided to Crime Stoppers. So it does work. The program does work. It works great. This is our area, although the map is a little bit skewed. The gray area should expand right to the water, but this is the area that Near North Crime Stoppers cover. So it's the entire district of Nipissing and the entire district of Parry Sound. So any municipalities, village, town within those two districts is covered by Near North Crime Stoppers. I was mentioning earlier that we have several programs across Canada, and in Ontario, there are 38 programs. So every area of the province is covered by a Crime Stoppers program. We all use the same tip line, the tip number, and all the programs also have the ability to take the tips online through the web. Crime Stoppers is also an international organization. So Crime Stoppers is in 22 countries around the world. So, and it basically works very similarly, although there are different legal aspect. For example, in Canada, the information that is provided to Crime Stoppers, because it is third-party information, it is not disclosable in court. So when the police receive the information, they will not mention it's a Crime Stoppers tip, and they don't have the actual tip with them to bring to court. The Supreme Court of Canada has ruled 3 times so far that the information provided to Crime Stoppers is not disclosable. So they recognize the anonymity, and that's what Crime Stoppers pride itself is on, guaranteeing the anonymity of the person providing the information. So that is very important, because a lot of times people that have information on criminal activities, they are very close to either the victim or the person that actually committed the crime. And for those reasons, they may not want to come forward. But by using Crime Stoppers, we guarantee that it is totally anonymous. Now, Crime Stoppers program, and I'm going to speak specifically on our program, the Near North Crime Stoppers, we rely on fundraising activities to support the programs. It costs on the average about $50,000 a year to run Near North Crime Stoppers. So if you just think of our phone bills, it's about $200 a month that we have to pay in telephone bills, the 1-800 line, the computer equipment, the vehicle that we have, and so on. And we rely on fundraising activities. Unfortunately, like everybody else, every other organization in the past couple of years, we have not been able to run our regular fundraising activities. We usually hold a jail-a-thon or jail and bail every other year, which normally brings in $20,000-$25,000, our annual golf tournament, and so on. So unfortunately, because of the COVID restriction, we haven't been able to do that. But the board members have been quite diligent in the past, and they had enough money put aside to get us through those 2 years. We do have a Nevada ticket sales. Actually, there was one the Circle K store in Perry Sound that the profits from their Nevada comes to Crime Stoppers. We have other area outlets at the mall here in North Bay and one in West Nipissing. We will run the annual golf tournament this year at Highview Golf Course in Powassan on August 27th. So we may send you an invitation if anybody is interested in golfing and joining us for that. But it is, like I said, the board relies on fundraising activities to pay. The only money that the Crime Stoppers receive from the government, it's from the provincial government, and that is for provincially for the after-hour service. So we are taking tips 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We never close. We cannot have people in the office 24 hours a day. So after regular normal or office hours, the phones are monitored by the National Anonymous Call Center, and that costs the province roughly $200,000 a year for the 38 programs in the province of Ontario. And we have been fortunate that for the past 12 years, I believe, that the province of Ontario has sponsored Crime Stoppers, and they paid for that after-hour services. So that's the money that we get from the government. Everything else, we don't. We have to raise the fund. Crime Stoppers, Near North Crime Stoppers is run by a board of volunteer. It is not a police program. It is strictly a citizen-based program. You see some of the board members here when we had our last jail-a-thon at the mall here in North Bay. So they are people like Peter, retired police officers. We have school teachers. We have people from all walks of life that participate, and their main goal is to administer the program. The board is responsible for deciding on what rewards to pay. So I will, as a police coordinator, I get the information, I present it to the board, and the board makes their decision as to how and when and how much money they will pay. We are quite involved in the community, so we have different community programs or participate in community events. Those are just some of the events that we've participated in. Santa Claus parade, and actually we have thrown the Grinch in jail during our Santa Claus parade in Powassan and West Nipissing. So that was, we do have also signage that is available for municipalities, and those are some of the signs that have been posted around the area. As you can see on this one here, we work hand in hand with the Ministry of Natural Resources for that one, for dumping on Crown land. We have one on poaching and so on. So we work with different agencies for that. This is how you can contact us, how people can contact us right here, the 1-800-222-TIPS or 8477 or online. And you can always communicate with us. Even if you're online, you have questions, just go on there and contact us and we'll be happy to answer any of the questions. So this, I know I've taken probably a little bit too much of your time, but I want to thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to present on Crime Stoppers. And if you have any questions, please feel free, ask the questions right now.
Thank you very much, Jean. Do councillors have any questions? Perhaps you could take down your share screen so I can see all my councillors.
Here we go.
Thank
Sorry
you.
about that.
Does anybody have any questions? I see no questions, but thank you very much. It's obviously a worthwhile program and is making a difference to keeping our communities safe. So I appreciate you coming to council, and we will keep the numbers and the website close at hand. I'm particularly intrigued about the sign about dumping.
If you want to contact us, we or through Peter, I'm sure we can make some arrangements to have a sign like that erected in your area.
Thank you very much, Peter and Jean.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So now I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the staff reports as presented on the agenda for the May 2nd, 2022 meeting of council. Could I have a motion from Art Coles?
I will so move, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Osborne?
Second, Mayor.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. And I think I am turning this over to Michelle, but I have a motion first that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adopt staff report number TR 2022-008 for the 2022 PSAB expenditures and regulation 284/09 of the Municipal Act, copy attached as Schedule A to this resolution. Could I have a motion from Councillor Fellner
So move, Mayor.
and seconded by Councillor Collins?
I'll second your motion.
And Michelle, I'm going to turn this over to you. Explain every year. It totally confuses me.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a requirement that basically reconciles the budgeting that we do under the Municipal Act to the budgeting that we do for our financial statements, which are presented on a public sector accounting board basis, including tangible capital assets. It is a housekeeping issue. We have to pass it before we pass the budget.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Michelle? All in favor? Thank you, and that is carried. Okay. Could I have a motion from, I'll read it first, that bylaw number 2022-056, being a bylaw to adopt the estimates of all sums required during the year and to strike the tax rates for the year 2022, is hereby deemed to have been read a first, second, and third time and passed by council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Finson?
I so move.
And seconded by Councillor Coles?
I'll second that.
And I'm going to ask Michelle to address it, but then I'm going to ask Councillor Coles to address a little bit the Rose Point Recreational Trail bit of it. So Michelle, over to you first.
And thank you very much. So the budget that was passed in principle in January has been slightly amended. There is a schedule that lists the changes that were made to the budget. We were able to bring the tax rate from 3%, as what we proposed in January, to 2.93%. So given that the tax rates for the school boards are not changing, the effect on our ratepayers in total is going to be a 2.04% tax rate increase. This is going to be a challenging year. This was a challenging budget because we have so many unknowns and so many things are changing so quickly. But this is the budget that we have put before you, and we believe that we are achieving all of the objectives that council gave us to prepare this budget.
Thank you. And Councillor Coles, can you speak a little bit to the request from the Rose Point Trail Committee? I know you come down later in business, but I think it's appropriate to address this part here.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether I'm actually clear whether these amounts are in our budget. Michelle will know that, I'm sure, but they're not. She's shaking her head. So the first part was the 80,000 for resurfacing the Rose Point Trail, which the committee had been asked to provide. And the second part was the 200,000, which was capital for a bridge. And I understand there'd been discussion around that, but it's not in the budget at this point in time. Is that correct, Michelle?
So there is money in the budget for Structure 27 and Structure 28.
Right.
And Structure 27 is the report that the Director of Public Works brought with that innovative design.
Yes.
Yes. So there is, I believe, $180,000 to $190,000 in total in the capital budget before you tonight for those two bridges.
Okay, so that's there. That's good, but we need to determine whether or not the funding is sufficient to do those two bridges. I think there may be a question about that, and whether we need one or two bridges is also a question. Okay, so I guess the other one, in terms of the 80,000, that's more operating to resurface the trail. Yeah, I think we need to take a new look at how we manage the Rose Point Trail, and I would prefer to see us monitoring it regularly on a staff basis and doing whatever's required to keep it in reasonable condition. It's a beautiful trail for those of you who have not walked it. And there's people that use it every single day. And I would really like to see our staff taking a more interest in the trail. I see Jason.
Yeah, thank you. I think our Chief Administrative Officer would like to speak to your points a little bit.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. Councillor Coles, you have brought up a point that we were discussing just a few hours ago. We were touching base last week as a staff team, and we'll be scheduling further discussions this week about trail management and resources, specifically as a partnership between Public Works and Community Services on how best to manage and refine those levels of service to make sure we're achieving the goals and objectives of our active transportation and trails master plan. So I think the short message is stay tuned, more to come, but we certainly have it high on our radar that we need consistent monitoring, consistent maintenance and management, not just of the Rose Point Trail, but of frankly all trails across the municipality.
Yes. Right. I totally concur.
Thank you. So we have the motion on the table for the 2.93% and final budget as presented. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? Thank you. And that's carried. And I think, Michelle, you're on for this one too. I have a motion that as per staff report number TR 2022-010, the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby approve an amendment to Human Resources Policy number D-3.1 for business expenses, 1, mileage, by replacing the following. This is what we already have. If you are required to use your vehicle on approved Seguin Township business, you will be reimbursed for business mileage. Mileage is currently paid at 53 cents per kilometer for township business and may be modified from time to time. That would be replaced with the following. If you are required to use your vehicle on approved Seguin Township business, you will be reimbursed for business mileage. Mileage is paid at the current rate as set by Canada Revenue Agency. Could I have a motion from Councillor Osborne?
So moved.
and seconded by Counselor Fellner.
I'll second that, Mayor.
Is there any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. I think this will bring us in line with lots of other organized. Oh, sorry, Counselor Osborne, did you have a question?
Sorry, I was muted. This is based, Michelle, on what agency, this increase?
This is
Tenant
the
revenue.
annual CRA budget or the annual CRA rate.
All right. So this
Canada
goes-
Revenue Agency.
So this is an increase of 8 cents per kilometer in mileage.
That's
Does
correct.
the CRA realize that the cost of fuel is almost doubled in the last year or two?
The CRA sets their rate every year. So I expect that the rate next January will be somewhat different than the rate for this year.
Okay, so they're basing this rate increase on 2020, I guess?
This is CRA. They base it on whatever they'd like.
Well, I know they love the HST they're getting. They don't want the price of gas to come down. But it just seems that 8 cents is not equitable given the price you look at the pump. Just a comment. Thank you.
Okay, so that has passed. And I have a motion that as per the recommendation of staff report AD 2022-006, the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby approve and support the following COVID-19 related initiatives for the Corporation of the Township of Seguin. Although these are in your council package, I'm going to read them out one by one. The Township of Seguin COVID-19 mandatory vaccination policy remains unchanged. The existing face mask and physical distancing protocols implemented by Seguin remain in place. Continue the current remote electronic participation in council meetings. Effective June 1, 2022, permit each Township of Seguin committee to decide for the respective committee whether or not to have in-person meetings based on the following conditions. Firstly, 2/3 of the total number of committee members must be in favor of in-person meetings. Secondly, everyone attending an in-person meeting must wear a face mask at all times while at the meeting. Thirdly, everyone attending in-person meetings must maintain a minimum of 2 meters of physical distancing from everyone else. And fourthly, meetings must be held at a Township of Seguin facility which has the space to ensure everyone at an in-person meeting is able to maintain a minimum of 2 meters physical distancing from everyone else. Staff are targeting opening the municipal office to the public without appointments by mid-June or by June 1, 2022. Effective June 1, 2022, the wearing of masks in Township office Seguin workplaces will become voluntary for everyone. The proposed changes and dates of implementation of those changes, including committee meetings in person, are contingent on the progression of the virus. The Chief Administrative Officer, in consultation with the senior management team, will monitor and make the necessary adjustments to the proposed dates and report changes to the council. Could I have a motion from Councillor Collins?
I'll move your motion, Mayor.
And seconded by Councillor Finson.
I second that.
Is there any discussion?
Crystal clear.
Councillor Finson.
I have a question, and my question is, Jesus, it's gone. I'm telling you, I'm losing it. My question is, will there be a time when we return to in-person meetings? I'm just curious as if you have any ideas of, the public are asking me and I'm just asking, is there a time? Is there going to be a time? Are we continuing this forever?
I'm looking at both the clerk and our CAO for the reply to that. Who's going to take this one?
Thank you, Your Worship. It's a great question, Councillor Finson. I think there's an acknowledgement that at this time, specifically in this district of the province, this is probably the worst it's been with respect to COVID spread. I also am aware that while the three of us are currently sitting in council's chambers, it's pretty tight quarters if we put 9 of us here. So, you know, we want to make sure that we're protecting each of the members of council and staff and doing the right things. So yes, we will continue to monitor. We do not have a set date in mind, but I think it's sort of on a month-to-month basis right now. We continue to monitor and we'll report recommendations in due course.
Yeah. The reason I'm asking is because one of the other committees I'm on is that they're going to make a decision, I think, to go, they're not going to have in-person meetings ever again. This is just way too easy. And I'm just thinking that we don't have that option, but I like this a lot and I'd like it to be like this, but I just wondered if we had anything in mind. So that answers my question. Perfect. Thank you.
Councillor Osborne.
Just a comment there. I agree that better safe than sorry. Although I will mention that some committees are talking now because of the 2/3, like you mentioned, the 2/3, 1/3. A lot of them are talking about hybrid meetings where you can attend in person if you wish, but they will still have the facility for remote for those members that don't want to appear. I just wondered what the clerk's opinion of that is, the possibility of hybrid once we're into the 3rd quarter. Thank you.
Through you, Your Worship. Councillor Osborne, that is spoken to in the report, but what it comes down to is the availability of the technology to do that. We have set that up here in our council chambers, keep in mind, but we don't have the capability of hybrid meetings in most of our other facilities. That's why we sort of went to the recommendation for the 2/3, because essentially it's either or, unless they could use the council chambers. But as the CAO has mentioned, just getting committee members themselves, let alone any public that want to attend that type of meeting, is pretty hard to do. So that's why the 2/3, also the 2/3, so that we don't lose a quorum. If we just made it a simple majority and one person didn't attend, there'd be no meetings.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd just like to ask a question. I wholeheartedly agree that the vaccination policy should remain in place. I would like the clerk or the CAO to tell me what fully vaccinated means.
Thank you, Worship. It's really quite an interesting question. In fact, I actually consulted with Councillor Finson earlier today, knowing that she does some work with the health unit. According to the health unit, fully vaccinated at this time continues to mean double vaxxed, although there is and continues to be strong recommendations for the booster, the 3rd shot, and or the 4th when you qualify. So at this time, our policy speaks to having double vaccination, meaning you're fully vaccinated. Before, we haven't necessarily recommended a change, but of course, we're comfortable if council would like us to explore anything further.
Councillor Finson?
And I'll just add to that the recommendation for boosters, your 1st and 2nd boosters are strong. They strongly recommend that you have your boosters. And just so everybody knows, there's clinics and they're all walk-in clinics as well as appointment clinics at the mall in Parry Sound on May the 10th from 1 to 6, May the 19th from 11 to 4, and May 28th from 10 to 3, which is a Saturday in case people can't make it during the week. So just to let you know that you can have your 4th booster, your 4th shot there, which is the 2nd booster. You can get the 1st one as well. But just thought I'd let you know that while we're on the subject.
Thank you very much. Councillor Osborne?
Could I have Gail just repeat those dates, please, for our benefit? May the 10th was the first one?
Oh, Gail, you're muted.
Sorry. May the 10th from 1 to 6.
Yep.
May the 19th from 11 to 4. May the 28th, which is a Saturday, from 10 to 3. And they're all walk-in. If you don't want to make an appointment, you can just show up.
Thank you very much.
At the mall. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess I'd be interested in a feeling from counselors whether they're comfortable with double vaxxed as the definition for the township, or whether we should say double vaxxed plus available boosters, or boosters that you're eligible for. What do people think? It makes a difference to how committees are staffed and the policies in the office. Is there any feeling?
Double vaxxed is.
So
I would
Councillor
just
Paul-
like to, I would just like to say that the policy is that's a full vaccination. So I think it would be difficult to go any other way. I think double vaxxed is a fully vaccinated person. You can fly with 2 vaccinations. So I think you should be able to go to work with 2 vaccinations. That's the recommendation from the health unit.
Yep, I agree.
I agree.
Okay, thank you. That gives us clarification. Yes, sorry. So we've got a motion on the table for the long one I read. Now we need to say all in favor of the policy. Okay, thank you. That's carried. Thank you, staff, for putting the effort into drafting that policy. And I have a motion that, as per the recommendation of the Rose Point Recreational Trail Committee, the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby adopt the revised Rose Point Recreational Trail Management Plan attached to this resolution as Schedule A. Could I have a motion from Councillor Coles
I will so move.
and seconded by Councillor Osborne?
Second that.
And before going to discussion, I'm going to ask you, Art, to give us a little bit of background.
Well, I don't know whether I can update it very much. The clerk could probably do a better job than I could of this being around longer on this issue, but it was revised in 2017. It's fairly standard document when you look at, I guess, trail management. It may be something we would consider putting into our trails master plan as part of it, or parts of it, because it's applicable to the management of trails and keeping them useful and functional throughout their history. So yeah, does the clerk have anything to say on this? Where is he?
No, that's pretty much accurate, Councillor Coles. It's reviewed every 5 years. And this is the time to review it, and it may well fall into the active transportation and trails master plan in the future.
Yeah, that's what I would recommend, if anything, that it's all part of the same master plan.
Our CAO is going to speak to it, and then I'll take your question from Councillor Fellner.
I think I'll just, if I could just hit replay my last comment before when we talked about the trail a moment ago. We certainly recognize the trail management plan continues to be a part of the Rose Point Trail, and excuse me, we'll continue to refine and look at the details of our active transportation trails master plan and see how the two integrate and as we look to the future. So we're happy to continue down that pathway. Thank you. Great. And Councillor Fellner, you have a comment?
Yeah, I have a question more than a comment. I just wondered if Councillor Coles knew what changed in this document versus the 2017 document.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate question I can't answer. I don't know, because there's no highlighted changes, and I honestly, that's why I was hoping the clerk could comment on that if there are changes in this document, but I'm not sure that there are. So,
well, I mean, I'd like to know if there was myself.
Okay, I'm going to ask our clerk to reply.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship. There actually was a very little and minor change. There was a prologue added, which I believe is on page 5, and that's the substantial real change in it.
Page 5?
Yeah.
It's page 135 of
okay.
the agenda package.
Yeah. Okay. Good add.
There were some minor grammatical edits, but that's that's really it.
Okay, thank you.
So seeing no further questions, all in favor?
Well, wait a minute. Wait.
Oh.
Sorry, Mayor.
Nick,
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't see your hand up, Councillor Collins.
Yes, I was trying to find my little yellow hand, but I couldn't. Anyways, didn't they at one time, the Rose Point Trail Committee, have funds? Didn't they commit some of their own funds to this trail management? And I think it was maybe approximately to the tune of 25,000, and we gave the money back to them when they found out we were moving ahead with this master trails plan.
No.
Oops, the clerk is going to reply. Sorry.
Hey, thanks. Okay, thank you.
I believe, Councillor Collins, you're thinking about the Rotary Club of Perry Sound, who had partnered with the township on various initiatives, and they had put some funds into a reserve and requested those back.
And I think you'll see on the next agenda item that the partnership is being renewed.
So the partnership with the Rotary Club is being renewed with the Rose Point Trail. Is that what I'm reading here?
That's the next agenda item. That's 9B. We're on 9A right now. So we're on the the trail management plan right now. But as we go to the next point, Councillor Coles will tell you that the Rotary Club and the Rose Point Trail are continuing to work together.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, can we have a vote for the motion on the table of the trail management plan for the Rose Point Trail? All in favor? Thank you. So this is just for information. There's a motion. Okay, so we have a resolution that as per the recommendation of the Rose Point Recreational Trail Committee, the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby authorize staff to enter into discussions with the Rotary Club of Perry Sound to draft a memorandum of understanding between the Rotary Club of Perry Sound and the Corporation of the Township of Seguin for the purposes of developing the Rose Point Recreational Trail System, and that the draft MOU be presented to the Rose Point Recreational Trail Committee for review and recommendations to council for consideration. Could I have a motion from Councillor Fellner?
So moved.
And seconded by Councillor Collins?
Yes, I'll second your motion, Mayor.
And Art, do you want to explain a little bit what's going on? It's been a
Yeah.
long-term partnership.
Yes, and you know, the Rotary has been a really valuable partner in the development of trails, and they as you know, when we began to develop the master plan, the trails master plan, we asked them to hold back until we had our trails master plan in place. So, and then we would re-enter into negotiations with them to keep on going. They're active and interested in working with our trails and in helping and partially funding it. So it's a worthwhile relationship. It's one that I believe we should continue to work with. They're anxious to continue to work with us. And I believe we're anxious to allow them to work with us as well. So it's a constructive and community-minded relationship that I think we all benefit from.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? All in favor? Thank you. On page 153 of your agenda package, you see a resolution passed by the town of Perry Sound regarding our MZO. It's for information only. Are there any questions about it? We will be discussing some parts of this in closed. Okay, so we'll move on to council reports. And Gail, why don't you go first?
Okay, I had a museum meeting and it was actually a very good museum meeting this week. One of the members is not well, so that was sad. But they seem to be moving along and they were very grateful for the toilets, I hear from Seguin. And the other thing that I've heard a lot about is the Maplehurst property and the ideas of development, and the Lake Russell North Association has sent out their views and thoughts on the $42 million homes that are being proposed for Maplehurst Road. And they're obviously not, they're not on board. So that's all I have. And other than that, just talking with people in the neighborhood. And I don't know if any of you know Joe Bissonette, but he is in the hospital, and I've been, speaking with his family just to check on him and see how he's doing. He won't be coming home probably, but he was a member of council for 45 years. So I just thought everybody might like to know that Joe is not perfect. So anyway, that's it for me. Thank you.
Councillor Collins.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Just basically dealing with a lot of questions being asked by constituents of mine that have a lot of rural property and what they can do with it. As we just passed today with Mr. Tarko, that he's surveying two lots out on his 30 plus hectare of land, and for more housing in our area. So in fact, I had a meeting with him, and I had a meeting with another gentleman, actually two other gentlemen, with also large parcels of rural property, and dealing with constituents' concerns. That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Fellner.
Thank you, Mayor. Since the last meeting, I had a library board meeting. We're on track now with, being open, and we're working hard on trying to finalize our improvement schedule for capital, some of the capital that we're going to spend. That was the only committee meeting I had. We did have an event Saturday. I don't know if we can share this picture or not, Craig or Jason. Seems they had a picture. Oh, yeah. So we had a picture. We had an event on the first event on Saturday, ran from the Jolly Roger with about 18 machines and 40 people. It was the Tracks for Breast Cancer event. We gave all the participants day passes in exchange for displaying a pink ribbon on the front of the machine. The trail was thoroughly enjoyed by all. The main trail is in very, very good condition for the time of the year. And they were able to find some mud on some of the back trails further in the system. So that's great news, really. Things are sort of getting back to somewhat normal. I think the trail was used for a great event. And I think we have another one planned or thinking of planning somewhere around Father's Day, reinstating that event. So things are moving along, and that's it for me. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you. Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Mayor. I had a CPAC meeting on the 21st of April, and our numbers, our calls for service numbers are way down. Everyone should be getting that report now on the CPAC numbers for Seguin. So that's good news. Our billing should be down. I have a EMS meeting on the 26th of May. And hopefully they won't be asking for more money. I've had calls about short-term rentals. It seems as though the letters that are going out to renters are having an impact because I'm getting calls asking what this means. And I keep reiterating that we're attempting to get the short-term rental issue solved in one way or another by the end of this term of council. That's my hope. And I've had some comments about the process with regards to our official plan review, complaints about comments that have been submitted not being recognized, and questions about the public consultation, which I realize has been talked about at public council meetings, our schedule. Other than that, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Coles.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, again, maybe not quite as busy as normal, but it's been still busy. April 25th, Belvedere Heights Finance Committee meeting, which included our 2021 year-end auditors report, with which we came out with flying colors, I must say. We ended our year in a very good position. April 27th, Belvedere Heights Board of Management meeting, our standard every 4 weeks meeting. April 28th, met with the regional CAOs, and the West Prairie Zone Health Center did a presentation on the campus of care, which was well received, and I probably have some follow-up meetings as a result of that as well. May the 2nd, today, this morning, at a coffee meeting discussing the life lease strategy going forward, and that's something we can't really talk too much about in public, but we can talk about it later. And then I've had a number of emails on the official plan. Some of them were kind of, I thought, under the low balls, like unfair criticism from some individuals on how we're dealing with the official plan. You know, it's on our website, and all the meetings are there. Just some people are unhappy with the way that we haven't redlined the official plan appropriately, or the consultants have not. So there are some issues there that we need to probably talk about at some other point. So and that's it.
Thank you. I will report briefly on April 20th, the overall fundraising committee for the Wellness Center met for the first time, of which I'm a member. At this stage, they don't want to pick a chair and co-chair, but have picked 4 chairs of various buckets, if you will, of fundraising opportunities: corporate, service clubs, public, and grants. And they're raring to go, let's put it that way. They would like to get going faster rather than slower, and they still believe they could get 5 million in capital and 5 million in endowment is their goal for the Wellness Center. April 22nd, I picked up my food cycler. When those of you that have it, hope you're enjoying them. The 21st was the Zone 9 meeting for Roma, where the opportunities for rural Ontario in a post-COVID world presentation was made. Catherine Wood is the consultant, and she's going around to each zone. And it was a very impressive presentation. If you want to see it, it is on the roma.on.ca presentation. And it goes through how the pandemic affected rural
join the meeting
municipalities. But the bottom line for every municipality that was on the call, housing and vital services are just not there. There was also quite a bit of talk about long-term healthcare and availability in rural Ontario, but housing's the bottom line for everybody. 26th was the airport operations meeting, and the renovation or the upgrade to the runway is going well. Then on the 27th, last Wednesday, I participated in the subcommittee of the Wellness Center fundraising for corporate and major gifts. And at this stage, they are proposing that naming of the center would be a $5 million 10-year commitment. And there's some pretty aggressive people on this committee. So I hope the talk turns into action. And then on Saturday was the first Earth Day cleanup and barbecue here in Humphrey. Our staff, Kara, Dominique, everybody really did, and Valerie did an outstanding job. I think everybody was a little bit disappointed in the turnout because it was a gorgeous day, but I can tell you that everybody that was there, particularly little people, had a ball. There was so much for them to do and so many handouts. I actually heard one saying to their mother at 2:00 when it was supposed to be over, "Do we have to leave now?" And our fire department was a big hit. They had lots of giveaways, except there were 2 fire calls during the barbecue. So the kids got to see the fire guys get their outfits on and start the trucks and drive away really fast. So that wasn't part of the plan, but it was actually quite well received. And I just wanted to point out one thing and ask if you're interested in helping. This will be sometime in June. The grade 5 and 6 class at Humphrey Elementary next door would like to have a mock council and a mock election to learn about municipal politics. So if you're interested in participating, probably for 1/2 day, to let whoever gets elected to your ward follow you and deal with questions that might come up. They're going to sit as a council. It's Pam Morehouse is their teacher, who's a dynamo, and there'll be more to come. But if you're interested in participating, let me know. And that's my report. Oh, Councillor Moffat, are you there?
I am, Mayor.
Do you want to make a council report? That's where we're at.
Yes, the only very quiet on the municipal front over the last couple of weeks. Carried in tax returns. The only thing, we had the annual general meeting for Muskoka Watershed Council. I think it was the 22nd of April. It was a very good event. Was reelected to the board, and as treasurer, probably at just a few calls on some summer maintenance roads, matters, OP stuff. Oh, Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Osborne, you have a question?
Yes, Mayor, I think you alluded to it somewhat. I was looking under correspondence, the minutes from the Recreation and Culture Center. And I noticed in there that there's going to be an ask for 20% of funds by the end of May. Will that be on our agenda to discuss at the next meeting? No?
I don't believe so. I think it's just a commitment. I'll ask our chief administrative officer to address it, but it's just one of the commitments we have.
Oh, I didn't know the council already made that commitment for that ask, that 20% ask, but maybe I missed something. Thanks.
Okay, it's just a portion of what council has approved. And every municipality is asking for their 20%, being asked for their 20%.
Is it not open to discussion as to why the ask and what it's going towards, et cetera, just to keep us surprised? I'll let Jason speak.
It's a great question, Councillor Osborne. This is the funding requirements as we move into the onset of detailed design, project management, architecture, and engineering are all going to require some cash on hand. We recognize that, and all of those, by the way, are cash or are grant eligible funds, meaning part of the ICIP grant funding will cover those costs, but the transfer payments, we don't have a defined schedule on how long it may take. And so we have to have some cash in the bank to be able to advance through those next phases of detailed design, and as I said, architecture engineering. So the request is being made of all of the funding partners for their equal contributions as per our allocation of funds.
So am I correct in assuming then that this 20% is based on the 32 million, which would be $6.5 million that they're requiring at this point? Or is it based on differential between the subsidy from the governments and the project total cost?
In brief, Councillor Osborne, it's 20% of our municipal contribution to the capital funds, and without having the exact figure in front of me, our contribution is about $2 million. And so this is representative of our 20% of Seguin Township's contribution, as would be the same discussion with each of the municipalities.
Okay, so therefore it would be 20% of the 9 million or 1.8 million they're looking to acquire, roughly.
Yeah, short of doing the math, I think you're pretty close, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby receive the board and committee minutes and agendas and the correspondence as presented on the agenda for the May 2nd, 2022 meeting of council. Could I have a motion by Councillor Finson?
I so move.
And seconded by Councillor Coles?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you. And I have a motion that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Seguin does hereby proceed to a closed meeting at 5:56 p.m. In order to address matters pertaining to advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose related to the appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal, minor variance application A 2021-0027-H for Chicone at 200 Sealy Bay Road, and litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board related to an update. Again, the appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal minor variance application A 2021-0027-H for Chicone at 200 Sealy Bay Road, and a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. And that's an update on the MZO Minister's Zoning Order. Could I have a motion by Councillor Osborne? And seconded by Councillor Fellner?
I'll second that, Mayor.
And all in favor of moving into closed? Thank you. Just give us a second on technicalities here.